Kum Lenin Ablak Gemara. This is the Gemara Daf Mem Dalet from Shushan Purim, and up to the Mishnah and Daf Mem Dalet Amud Aleph. We're continuing the process of a Nazir, going through the stages after the Naziris is completed. Anyway, but before we do that, we're going to say that three main Isurim that a Nazir has. And basically, the Gemara is going to tease out each din of a Nazir has different parameters, and why they have different parameters. So, the three dinim which are also by Nazir. Hatuma, you're not allowed to become tummy. Number one, hatiglachas is not permitted to take a haircut. Number two, the hayotze min hagefen, and you're not allowed to drink from anything or eat anything that's anything that comes from derivatives from a grape. Now, there's a chumra by tumah that you don't betaglachas that you have by tumah and by haircut. More than a grape, and that is when it comes to tumah, when it comes to haircut, it cancels your nazir. Tumah completely cancels. You wait 7 days to become clean and then start all over again. Teglachas, you got to wait 30 days until your hair grows back. But yaitzim and agefen, if you drank wine during your naziris, you shouldn't have, it doesn't cancel it. But there's a chumrah, however, by gefen, that by wine and grapes more than you have by haircut and tumah. And what is that? It's never permitted. In other words, we said even yayin mitzvah yinal. If you made a shvuah, if you made a vow we're up to the Mishnah here in Daf Mem Dalet Amud Aleph in the middle of the Mishnah. And basically, we're going through the three averis that a Nazir has, which is tumah, haircut, and the grape. And we're showing how each one has a stringency that other ones don't have. So the stringency by what do you call it? The stringency that tumah and haircut have is that if you become tumah, you cancel the nazir, you got to start again. If you took a haircut, you got to give yourself another 30 days. But if you drank wine, it's forbidden, but you don't have to start again. The chumrah by wine is that wine is never permitted. What is it? We have to write in the middle of the Mishnah. You never permitted. If you made a vow that you will drink wine, and then you say you become a nazir, it does not permit you to drink the wine that you just said you won't drink. Even though we had an argument regarding Kiddush, and remember Rashi of Dalet said that you could drink the wine of Kiddush, that's not called Huta Miklali. It never became us in the first place because we swore on Har Sinai to make Kiddush on wine, according to Rashi's version. So therefore, Huta Miklali means that it's forbidden, but now it became permitted. That was, according to Rashi, he makes Kiddush, no problem. According to the other ones, other people make Kiddush for you. And because you cannot drink. That's for sure, the Rabban only. And but Tumah, Taglacha, Hutu Miklala. But Taglacha's mitzvah, if you're a mitzvah, for example, and you're a Nazir, you take a haircut, even though you're a Nazir, because the mitzvah, and same thing by Tumah, if there's a mace mitzvah, you'll go ahead, even though you're a Nazir, and become Tameh. So those two, you're permitted sometimes to go ahead and do that thing. What is the chumrah that you have by Tumah over Taglachas? Tumah says that if you were, let's say, a Nazir for 150 days, and day number 149 you became Tameh, you got to, after the 7 days of cleaning, you have to start all over again. And the chayah number one. And the haircut, all you need is 30 days to get your hair growing back. That's all. Even though you took a 100-day haircut and you're 100-day Naziris, and then you cancel it for day number 75, you don't start all over again. You just give yourself 30 days. So you add just 5 days to give yourself. The chayav and a carbon. Number two is for tumah, you have to bring a carbon after the 7 days you become clean. But if you take a haircut, you don't bring extra carbonates. The taglachas ain is shleishim only 30 days. The ain chayav and bring a carbon. Now the Gemara is going to explain how do we know. We're teasing out how you know each chumrah, and that's what the Gemara is going to do now to the next Mishnah. So the Gemara says, tumah should not be allowed ever, even for a mace mitzvah, because the kalvachayim. Let's learn from wine. We just said that wine is lenient. Wine is lenient, doesn't cancel your naziris. Yet there's no way you could ever drink wine while you're a nazir, ever, even for a mitzvah. So tumah, as said, a tumah which is not stringent, that it cancels your naziris. Surely, surely there should never be any allowances to be able to become tameh. Why do you say there's a corpse there that there's no one to bury a mace mitzvah? Even though you're a nazir, you can go ahead and become tameh. a special pasuk. It says by a nazir, la'avi v'le'ima lo yitame. His father's mother shouldn't contaminate himself. La'avi v'le'ima lo yitame, not to his father's mother. Aval netame u'lemeis mitzvah. But we infer from that you could become tummy for a meis mitzvah. Okay, the Gemara continues. So the yayin yutim mikloish. So now that we have established that even tumah, which is so strict, yet for a meis mitzvah you're permitted. So why don't we say the same thing by wine, that since it's much more lenient, doesn't cancel your nazirus? Surely you should be able to, for a mitzvah, to drink the wine. Yayin yutim miklole kavachayim metuma. Let's make kavachayim. Ma tuma, she says, which is so strict that it cancels your nazirus. Yet hutra miklole, yet for a mitzvah you're permitted to become tamei. So yayin she'enu say, so yayin which is much weaker doesn't cancel your nazirus. Einay din sheyutim miklole. Surely for a mitzvah, let's say you made a vow, you'll drink wine. So now you became a nazir, you should still be able to drink the wine. Fulfill your mitzvah. On Makro, we have a pasuk for that. The other way, it says miyayin v'sheicha yaz. We hand up gimel beza. From wine and old wine, you should separate. Why do you have to say old wine's obvious? So we learn out lesser yayin mitzvah kayayin shus, to tell you that not only permitted wine is forbidden, but even mitzvah wine is forbidden while you're a nazir. So we have a special pasuk. Says the Gemara. Okay, so now that we've established that it's forbidden, so we say that wine has a chumrah that there's no way you can ever drink it. There's no extenuating circumstances. So taka, the din by wine should be that it should cancel your whole naziris. Is the yayin yitzes hakol? Then the din should be that if you drank wine during naziris, you should cancel the whole naziris and start again. Kabachayim betuma, make a kabachayim. Ma tuma, shahutra mikol tuma has a leniency that for mitzvah you can become tamei. Yet so he said this is hakoil, it cancels the entire naziris. Yayin shaloi hutra mikloli, wine that is never permitted, like koshkin, surely she gets a cancel in naziris. On Makro, we have a pasuk when it comes to tumah. The pasuk clearly singles out tumah as if hayamim arishonim yiplu. It says in the pasuk that the first day should be cancelled. Ki tamei nizroi, only because he became tamei. As if to say the only time that you cancel your entire naziris is if you became tamei, but not if you drank wine. Tumah said is only tumah cancels it. Says the Gemara about taglachas. Let's go on the next one. Haircut. Haircut tisakar. Why is only cancelled 30 days? You should cancel everything. We have a chumrah that by taglachas that we don't have by tumah. What is that? When we say that a nazir is not allowed to take a haircut, there are two people who are involved in that avera. The person who's actually giving the haircut and the purpose of the receiving it. That we have by shaving off the whole head. It's called a makif and a nikif. So here also there's a megalech and the person who is this galech. The person who got a haircut, they both committed a sin, as we'll see later from a pasuk we learn out. It says tar asher lo yava. It doesn't say that you shouldn't put on your own head. It said lo yava, shouldn't cross his head regardless who's doing it. But by tumah, the only person who is the person who became tumah, not the person who touched him. So the chayda, the ma tumah. Shalei also, but metamim, if that person touches not become is not the avera. Yet it says hakol cancels everything. Tiglachas shatim galei, but tiglachas where the person, the other person, time another, also committed a sin. Ein din surely should be stringent. Should titzes hakol. You should cancel everything. How do we know that megalech does not cancel everything? Again, we'll go back to the pasuk. It says, the only time that Yipli, the only time that the whole thing gets canceled is Tamei, because by Tumah, nowhere else. So how come it cancels 30 days? We'll see later because you need here to come. So the Gemara says, Tumah, so we'll learn after that. Tumah says only Tumah cancels everything. They ain't says but not haircut. Says the Gemara, so now let's say, now that we've established that Tumah has a chumrah over Tiglachas, let's say by Tumah that the person who touched the Nazir should also be liable, should commit another hater. The mitame is kimitame. The person who touched him, who made him tame, should be liable, just like the person who received the tumah. Let's learn from taking a haircut. Mataglachas by hikah, which is lenient. It said is Elishloishim only cancels 30 days. Yet we treat the person who gave him the haircut equal as a culpable naveira. Tumah, she says, tumah is so stringent that cancels everything. Shouldn't it be also the person who touched the person should also be liable? On Makra, again, we found the pasuk. The pasuk says that a person became tamei, and it says that the timei roish nizroi, he became, his own head became tamei. So the only person here who committed a sin is the nazir himself.
Referring to him as well. The timei roish nizroi, he made his own.
Yeah, his own. So not an outsider. Limitame roish nizroi. He's the only person who's here culpable is the person who's the nazir himself. So the teglachas, so then let's no way around. Since Tumah is so strict, and yet the person who made him tummy is not liable, so by haircut also. the barber shouldn't be responsible. Let's learn from Tumah. She says that cancels everything. So strict. The person touches the liable. So tiglacha she'ein said as elos only cancels 30 days. Surely the barber shouldn't be responsible. So Nasim Galek and treat him again on my cross. For that we have a pasuk. It says Tad. When it comes to taking a haircut, shaving, it says Tad. A razor loyav al roy shoy. It says that haircut, who does it should not pass over the noz's head. Kribe loyav. Who loyav? Loyav means the aver is loyav. Shouldn't cross over the head. It doesn't say he shouldn't do it. By loytava, it says loyav. Anyone shouldn't, even the barber. Says the motive. So. Taglachas the miklola. The taglachas has the stringency, so we should say by taglachas that there should never be a situation where we allow, for example, even by mitzvah, you shouldn't take a haircut. Have wine. Doesn't have the ability to cancel anything. Yet lahuta miklola, there's never a way, an excuse that you could drink wine while you're nazir. Tiglachas, as I said, it's okay, 30 days, but it does cancel party in the nazir, so it's stricter. Ain't a din should like tuta miklola. Surely that it should never be an opportunity to go ahead and do a mitzvah that you say yes during the nazir you can take a haircut if you're a mitzvah. Amar Achman, we learned a few days ago, the Torah says, the Amar Achman the Roy Shoy. The Amar Achman is a cut. Remember, it said by your mitzvah, shave all your head, all your hair, and then it says your head and your beard. And we learned from there before that's why the Torah tell you that, because when you're a nazir, a mitzvah, you have a mitzvah to take a haircut, and even though you're a nazir, you know, take a haircut, but as a mitzvah, you can't. So even though Rosh should be forbidden, you can't. So the Torah clearly says that I'm what do you call it? Taglachas, even by a mitzvah, a nazir by a mitzvah, for example, your mitzvah, go ahead and shave your head. If so, but taglachas, let's just the clouds, and if that's the case, then if so lenient, then we should say that it shouldn't cancel anything. Wine. Wine is so strict that it's never permitted. Yet in Yisrael does not cancel at all any days of your naziris. Taglachas, shaving, which is much more lenient. To who do the mikvah, and then surely shouldn't cancel any days. Says the Gemara, be'inin gidul sar v'holeka. We need the reason why 30 days is not a din in Naziris so much in the Naziris, it's more a din that practically you need to have a mitzvah.
Some hair to cut.
Exactly. Well, lekker. Says the Gemara, okay, now that we've established that, is yayin wine, yister shloishim yayin, let wine taka cancel 30 days, because in one hand it's stricter than teglachas. When it comes to shaving, which you're allowed to do for a mitzvah like mitzvah. Yet say said it cancels 30 days. Yayin shlohuta miklallah, wine which you can never ever drink wine even from mitzvah. Ain't a din sheyitza. Surely it should cancel something. Says you wait, Toma, we just explained to you. Media time, but the reason why the haircut cancels is not because some kind of a din that it cancels Naziris. And practically speaking, we need hair to cut. Yeah, but yeah, but why he has his hair, there's no problem. Next Mishnah. Okay, this person became Tameh, and now he has to get 7 days. The person became Tameh, and now that he has 7 days, that he has to cleanse himself with the paradim and everything else. At the end of the 7 days, it says in the pasuk, what does he do at the end of the 7 days? That he goes to the mikveh, and he takes the haircut on the 7th day, and he brings his kabbalah the following day. So teglachas to mikveh, how does it work? They used to sprinkle him on the 3rd and 7th day. It says that on the 7th day he takes the haircut. But maybe and the following day he brings the kabbanis. But if he took a haircut on the 8th day, then maybe kabbanas of baby of kibbutz. Kibbutz says it's not the but even though the Torah says you take a haircut on the 7th day, you bring kabbanas the 8th day. Not the pshat is that you must wait a day in between the haircut and the kabbanas. Just saying you can take a haircut straight away after you cleanse it on the 7th day itself. But if you took a haircut on the 8th day, you shave on the 8th day, you can still bring your kabbanas on the 8th day. Said to him, by a mitzvah, you clearly told us by a mitzvah what that when he takes his he takes his haircut, he goes to the mikveh, he takes a haircut, and he goes to the mikveh again, and he says over there that says there on the 7th day after he finishes the tzaras, on the 7th day he shaves all of his head, goes to the mikveh. And on the 8th day he brings kabbanas. And you told us that if he takes a haircut on the 8th day, then he brings the kabbanas on the 9th day. In other words, the Torah wanted a day apart between the shaving and the kabbanas by mitzvah. So why should Nazir be any different? So Amalei, how is it different mitzvah when you yourself told us by mitzvah you have to wait a day? How come by here you say if you took a haircut on the 8th day you can bring kabbalah on the 8th day? Amalei said very simple. He said over here. As soon as you finish 7 days, you're tired. This person by the Nazir, you're tired after the 7 days, and you can take a haircut and you bring a carbon the next day. But if you take the haircut the next day, so what? You can still bring the haircut, and the carbon should be the same day. But mitzvah, it's the days. So therefore, taking a haircut the 8th day, we don't care if you take the haircut the 8th day. You can still bring kabbanas the 8th day, the day after your tara. But mitzvah, taharos taglachas. The haircut there is what makes him tired. So therefore, in other words, even though even when Sarah went to mikveh the 7th day, then takes a haircut, has to go to mikveh again. So in other words, so the haircut is before the second mikveh, which means that the haircut is part of the tefillah process, is part of the tara process by mitzvah. So therefore, we need a day apart between the tara and the kabbanas. If he took a haircut on the 8th day, then he cannot bring kabbanas on the 8th day. He has to bring kabbanas on the 9th day. By a nazir, the haircut is not part of the tara process. He's became tum for 7 days. The haircut is that we started. Just again, you got to take a haircut. So therefore, it doesn't matter if you take a haircut the 7th day or take a haircut the 8th day. You bring kabbanas on the 8th day now. Mashenke by mitzvah, the haircut is part of the tara process, and because haraya after the haircut, you got to go to mikvah again. So, and the mikvah definitely is tara process. So, therefore, the haircut is part of the tara process, and we cannot bring the kabbanas the same day you become tired. So, it's clearly the Torah you bring the kabbanas the day after you become tired. So, if you took your haircut on the 8th day, that's the day you became tired. So, the kabbanas are the 9th day. So, the Gemara. But it depends on when he takes a haircut. That's part of the purification process. The maybe carbon is not being a carbon. Every time you go to mikveh, you have to wait for the sunset, and you cannot bring a carbon to the following. You cannot bring a carbon to the following day between the tara and the karbonis. And since the haircut by mitzvah is part of the tara process, so if you delay your haircut, you have to delay your carbon as well. Says the Gemara, did Rav Tarfon accept Rabbi Akiva's explanation or not? Did he still maintain his argument that by Nazir also? Yeah, very good. Did Rav Tarfon accept Rabbi Akiva's exception or answer, or he believes no? He maintained that a Nazir is like Mitzvah, that if you took a haircut the 8th day, you let's say he was coming for 7 days, took a haircut the 8th day, you carbon is the 9th day. So the Gemara Tashma we learned. The Tani Hill said, Gilach Bishmini. The Hill said. We're talking about a Nazir. It said by Nazir says he said Hillel Gilach B'Shmini. He said if he took a haircut on the 8th day by not a Nazir, we're talking about a Nazir. If he took a haircut on the 8th day by a Nazir, is maybe he brings a carbon on the 9th day. In other words, even by a Nazir, you cannot bring the carbon the same day the haircut, which sounds like Rav Tarfon's question to Rabbi Akiva, not Rabbi Akiva's answer. These are the Gibber. Let's go to B'Shmini. Let him bring the carbon on the 8th day. In other words, the fact that we have an opinion in the Brisa that says clearly that if you took a haircut, this Nazir became tummy, took a haircut on the 8th day, he brings the carbon on the 9th day, must be Rav Tarfon did not accept Rabbi Akiva's answer, and he maintains that even by a Nazir, you don't bring the carbonas the same day you brought a haircut. So Hillel, Rav Tarfon is this Brisa. Also, the Brisa saying that Hillel, on the 8th day, you bring the carbonas on the 9th day. Says Amar Rav said, no proof whatsoever. Like Kasha, it's not a question. This Hill says that you wait, you took a haircut the 8th day. It says here, if he went to the mikvah on the 7th day, then I don't care if he took a haircut on the 8th day, because the haircut is not part of the tefillah process. He can bring a carbon the 8th day. That's what Akiva is talking about. Hillel's case, in this Brisa is talking about, you did not go to the mikvah. This Nazir, even though he was purified, he did not go to the mikvah till the 8th day. So then he could and that's why he took a haircut as well. And therefore he cannot bring the kabbalah night, not because of the haircut problem. The problem was the mikvah problem. And that takes us a little bit of problem. So why highlight the haircut? You should highlight in the Brisa the day he went to the mikvah. It's because the haircut is totally irrelevant here. It's more to do with when he took a haircut. But anyway, but that's what it's shot. Okay, says he might further. I once found the Chavrid that I once found the friends of Rav Nosson the Yassin was sitting Uka-Amri, and they said the following thing. It says in the Pasuk that a B'Tzeira, on the 8th day, he brings his kabbanas, the 2 birds or the doves, and then says this, Uba Lifnei Hashem, on the 8th day, he comes before Hashem, El Pesach Oil Moed, to the opening of the Oil Moed. That means he goes into the Azara, the Ezra Nashim, and there was a gate they called the Shah Nikon, as we'll soon discuss. The Shah Nikon was a gate entering into where the oil, where the base of Mikdash was. So that is called Machane, like Machane Shchini, not allowed to go there at all. Even anybody tummy can't go there at all. And then you have the Ezra Nashim there, and there you have where a mace is allowed to even be there, a tummy mace is allowed to be there. And so it says here in the pasuk that by Mitzrayim, on the 8th day, he comes to the Pesach Oil Moed, unesonim ala kohen. He gives it to the kohen. When is he allowed to go there? So he says as follows: Hey Masai, when is he allowed to go there? Only first he had to go to the mikveh, and he needed a head of shemesh. If he went to the mikveh on the 7th day and the sun set on the 8th day, he's permitted to go there. But if he, let's say, did not go to the mikveh on the 7th day, but he went to the mikveh on the 8th day, then he cannot go there on the 8th day. He has to go there on the 9th day because he also has to wait for the sunset. So we know when is a bol of Hashem if he did what he had to do. He went to the mikveh on the 7th day, and he also had head of shemesh. In other words, he's not allowed to even go to the Machane Leviyah, to the second camp, although a Tamei mace is if somebody touches that corpse, he's allowed to go into the Machane Leviyah, but not what do you call it? We're talking about here a Zov actually. So the Gemara, what is it? We're not talking about a Zav here. That a Zav, but a male who has emissions. The law does follow. A male has emissions if he has different by a woman, but by a male, if he has 2 emissions, it doesn't matter 2 consecutive days, the same day. If it's two emissions, he has to wait 7 clean days before he can then go to then he's tired. If he had 3 emissions, he not only waits 7 clean days, but then he has to go bring carbonis. When is bring his carbon on the 8th day? But he must go to the mikvah on the 7th day. And then after the 7th day, after he goes to the mikveh, he then has head of shemesh. He waits for the sun to set, and on the 8th day, he can bring his kabbalah. If he did not, then even though a tamei mace is permitted to walk into that section of the base of Mikdash, he can. When is it a bo? When can he go into the and give it to the kohen? Only if he did the right thing on the day before. So we're much more machmir by a zov than by a tamei mace. A tamei mace is allowed to walk into the Machane Leviyah. You just can't walk into Machane Shchina, into where the base of Mikdash, but you can walk into the Azara, into the courtyard. But a zov can't even walk into the courtyard. So when is a ba lifnei Hashem el Pesach? When can he walk into that Shar Nikon, which is part of the courtyard? When? Only if he did the day before he went to the mikveh and he had the sunset. Okay. Only then, if he did the sunset, then he's allowed to go. However, if he did not go to mikveh, or even if he did go to mikveh, but he went at night, let's say, he didn't have the sun setting, then it does not work. It does. Then he cannot go in there. He has, and the Alma Kasava, what do we glean from this? They hold that a Tvul Yom shows up. We're talking about a Tvul Yom. In other words, he already went to the mikveh. The only thing that's missing is he didn't have the sun didn't set. That's called a Tvul Yom. And a Tvul Yom is a low level. We said is only like a Sheni L'Tumah. Only if he touches Trumah becomes a Shlishi or a Kachim, becomes a Revi, a Tvul Yom or Machmet. But we see here that a Tvul Yom of a Zav is even stricter than a Tamei mace, and is like a Zav dam. He has all the laws of a Zav itself. Is not allowed to walk into the Machane Leviyah, and for example, you're not allowed to shech the carbon on him because he is on a Tamei mace who's becoming clean that day. You can shech the carbon, and that night he'll eat from it like a korban pesach, but not on a Tvul Yom Zav. He already carved from a Zav. It's like a full Zav. Exactly. It's like a Zav dummy. It's exactly like a Zav.
There's another things you see that the Tvul is different.
And the reason why we're so machmir by Zav, because the tumah came from within himself. By a mace, the tumah is extraneous. He touched the corpse. Here, the tumah came from himself. Okay. And right now we're learning it makes no difference if the Zav has to bring a carbon or doesn't, whether he saw 2 sightings or 3 sightings. Doesn't matter if Mechusik Kippurim, not Mechusik Kippurim. In all those cases, it is he is like a Zav. As the Gemara, Abaye says, I turned around to them. No, I said to them, it doesn't make sense. El Meata, the way you learn it, because it says a bar Pesach you decided that a Tvul Yom of a Zav is like a Zav, he's not allowed to walk even into the courtyard. And why? Because it says bar the Yom Hashmini. That means the Torah stresses he comes the 8th day. Why wait till the 8th day? Because you had to wait for the sun to set on the 7th day. In other words, you're learning from that the Torah must have meant that he went to the mikvah on the 7th day, and I don't want you there before the 8th day because I want you to be able to bring your but even if you're not chayiv kabbanis, you cannot walk into there unless you had the sunset, right? Because it's a full yom. That's how you learn. Following that logic, so by a nazir as well. By a nazir tameh who has to wait 7 days, the chsiv it says on the 7th day he shaves his head. By yom hashmini he brings his kabbanis. And it says he brings it a clean Pesach Olamid. So according to your logic, dashing Pesach Olamid the next day, you have to wait. Not only have to go to the mikvah, you have to wait till sunset. That means if he went to the mikvah on the 8th day, he couldn't go to the base mikvah on the 8th day. Following your logic, another tamei. He's all he is a tummy mace, but you're not going to allow him to the courtyard. Every other tummy mace is allowed to go to the courtyard. Even the mace himself, you're allowed to bring into the courtyard. But a nazir who's tummy mace cannot go to the courtyard. Does it make sense? Following your logic, a Messiah who comes, according to your logic, that the Torah said the next day you go Pesach Hamayim, you say, I need a sunset between the day you finish your tumah until you walk in. But there's no such thing. Mechti, let's understand. He walked over to the Shah Nikner, right? This is the gate of the Nikner. That's the Ezra Nashim, and that's called Machna Leviyah. Where is it? Bishar Leviyah, that's the Machna Leviyah. And but Tanya, the rule is that even the mace himself can be there. You tell me that a Nazir who's a Tameh mace cannot walk into the Ezra Nashim until the sun sets after he went to the mikveh. It doesn't make sense. But Tanya, we learned Tameh mace. A person's a Tameh generally, forget about the fact he's a Nazir. An ordinary Tameh mace can walk into there. You can bring a corpse into there. Remember, it says Moshe Rabbeinu took the bones of Moshe with him, and my ima im where he was sitting, and that's called Machna Leviyah. So your drasha of Pesach Hamayid by a Zav doesn't make sense. You dash and why the next day Pesach Hamayid, why the 8th day is because we needed a sunset in between. So following that logic by a Nazir who's Tameh, it says also Pesach Hamayid the next day means you have to have a sunset. That means you tell me what that this Nazir who touched the mace cannot walk into Machna Leviyah because he's a true Yom. But the law is that the mace can be exactly. So the element of Tvul Yom Shel Zav. Well, there's a big machlekes how to learn Pshadei. We'll learn like Taisus, or like the Taisus Rosh. Like Elam Abaya, Tvul Yom Shel Zav, Lav Kezav Dam. Must be that your conclusion is wrong. The fact that it says Pesach Hamayid is totally wrong. It's not like a Zav. So if so what's Pshat? So what's Pshat then? Why the Torah says come the next day? Over there, the problem is you didn't bring you cannot walk into the Beis HaMikdash because you're a mechusa kapara. And the rule is that even though the 7th day he went to the mikveh, he doesn't need Heder Shemesh. But a Zav has, we're not talking about, you thought we're talking about a Zav who only had 2 sightings. We're talking about a Zav who had 3 sightings. He has to bring a carbon. Bring a carbon, as long as he didn't bring a carbon yet, you're known as a mechusa kapara. And that is what prevents you from walking into the Machna Leviyah. Even the mechusa kapara does not allow him to walk in. So the Gemara says even Machna Leviyah. If we're talking about Machna Leviyah, am I oil moed? Generally, when we say Pesach oil moed, we mean the oil moed is the Machna Shechina. That's the base of Midrash itself. And you're telling me the whole time we're talking about here Machna Leviyah. Remember to tell you, just like you're not allowed to walk into the Beis HaMikdash if you didn't bring yet your kapanas to finish your tumah. So to Machna Leviyah, a Zav who did not bring his kapanas cannot walk in. So a Nazir who's tamei is no problem. What do you call it? A Zav. When we say a Zav, we're talking about a Zav. The problem is only why he has to wait till the following day is not because he didn't go. He went to the mikveh and he has to get to the sunset. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a Zav who has to bring kabbanas 3 times. That's the problem. But Hasa Minala, and how do you know? The Tanya we learn Tamei. It says in the passage that Tamei that somebody touches a mace. Tamei. So you tell me that a Tamei tell you that it's full yom, and oitu masaboy le rabbi is mechusa kapara. To tell you that what a mechusa kapara cannot walk into there the Beis HaMikdash. See you tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.